because those are small. Let me line them up so they look a little prettier here. Fix them a little bit more. You know, I've gone through the 2-3 days of thinking, grieving, call it what you want to call it, and including 10 minutes before I came down here, watched the film for the third or fourth time and tried to evaluate, what we could have, should have done, what went on. And I just want to diffuse a couple of things that, as you can imagine, the UP's excited about this loss because the amount of paper, the emails I got, my secretary prints them out, we're saving the UP with paper. All the trees down there they're cutting because I want to diffuse a couple of things that I don't think any player looked past the game. I don't think any coach did. There's a human element when a 2 is playing a 15 that I don't think I'll ever be able to check until I can jump into somebody's head. But I know the way we practiced. I know the way we prepared. I know the way our seniors were. It doesn't even come across my mind. I don't feel any different than I felt that night. Did we make some defensive mistakes? Yes, we did. Was it a lack of anything? No, it wasn't. Did they make, I think in the second half, in the last 12 minutes, I think there were like 8 3-point plays made. Either shots they made or 3-point finishes on fouls. I think there were 3 or 4 of those alone. And just like we said after the game, every run we made, they answered it. And they answered it with a 3-point play in one way or another. And that did take some of the wind out of our sail. But, for a team that went through a lot this year, would I have called a timeout earlier? Would I have changed defenses? I can think of so many things that it's like when there's injuries, the witch doctors come out and tell us all the way to heal them. I can't go that route, but I definitely want to make sure that one thing is stated here. Blame the coach for whatever you want to blame the coach for, and you guys have been awesome. But do not blame the players for not being ready to play or something. As good as those seniors have been, as good as this team has been all year, we won 16 Big Ten games, 16 of them, and I think we won by an average of like 16 or 18 points. It was some unbelievable deal. And when you do that, that means you're not overlooking people in a time when, they were used to not overlooking people. We were blowing some teams out. And so that had nothing to do with it. The respect had nothing to do with it. Guys not being ready. Problems in the locker room. My father's death. I'm trying to think of all the ones that I've read. Not from you guys. From the, better be kind, from the people out there. None of them are true. And we got beat by a team that played better than us that night. But what I don't want to diminish is the accomplishments of the records this team set, and individually and collectively, team and personal, was an incredible year. Can you imagine that I'm answering questions about, did you start out too good? Did you have too good of a start? Are people on dial-a-clue or what? Did you start out too good? It used to be never can win a preseason tournament. I would not have done one thing different all year except maybe not have the slew of injuries we had, which caused us to be still experimenting at the end of the year like we were at the beginning of the year. That part of it, nobody had any control of. And the parts that I did have control of, which there were some, could I have called a timeout? Could I have changed this? Could I have changed that? I wouldn't have done anything much different than I did. So that's what I should be criticized for. The players, my love and admiration and respect for those players will never wane 1 inch. I will not look at one guy. We had some guys that made some mistakes, and we had some guys that made great plays. If you would have told me that we were going to lose that game, I would have said no. If you would have told me we were going to shoot 55 and 46 from the 3, I would have said we'll win easy. If you know, all the things that are the norm, and that's why it's March Madness, that's why there's upsets, that's why we all pay attention. And if you ask me, what would I do next year to make sure that doesn't happen again? I couldn't give you an answer. I couldn't give you an answer because I didn't think there was anything that glaring. And I think that's what frustrates me so much, and I would think that's what frustrates people so much. When I had years when Kalen Lucas, had the torn Achilles, there's a reason. It's like somebody, I want to put it this way after losing my father, like somebody dies, though. If there's no reason, if there's a reason you died, you can stomach it. If there's no reason, it just happened, walked off a curb, it's hard to deal with. Well, this is a game, and I'm not going to make it that big of a deal, but it was a special game with a special group on a team that I really felt before the tournament had a chance to make a serious run. And as I sit there and watch the other games, I do not feel one bit different. And so that's what I got to live with, and that's what I will live with. And I've had mostly player meetings yesterday. I want to make sure it's fresh in everybody's mind. I met with my seniors. I got one left today. And there isn't one thing I'm saying to you that I'm not saying to them that I don't feel any different about. So any questions you got, I will field them all today.
Tom, you mentioned that you wouldn't do anything differently, but when you watch the film, is there anything defensively, schematically, anything else that if you could go back in time, you might change?
At the beginning of the year, everybody wants me to play zone. Judd Heathcote, I'm not talking to you guys. Everybody wants me to play zone. I told Tom Crane last year, they were switching defenses right and left. And to me, not playing any of them very good. And he asked me my advice at the end of the year. I said, stick to something so that your team's less confused than you think the opposition is. And, you can make adjustments. You could, if I had to do one thing over, if I didn't have all those injuries early, I might have played some different defenses. I might have had the time to work on them. I was trying to get people healthy and do all that. So I wouldn't have. And don't read into, Syracuse played zone, so they beat them. I mean, people up in Syracuse are mad that they're not in more Final Fours because that's all they play is zone, and people figure it out, If I had to listen to all the naysayers on that stuff, now I wouldn't change a thing. I'd like to be a little bit more dimensional. Larry over here wants me to press, and Matt back. Not true. At least home up to what you complain about. Everybody's got a different angle, and when you win, you did it the right way, and when you lose, you're always looking for things. I think I'm strong enough that I'm not looking for excuses, but I'm not looking for changes for no reason. I mean, that defense is like second best in the whole nation. And, we lost that game because a team made some shots. They could have made those shots against a zone easier than a man. And so, could I call the timeout, the possession before? Just the day before at our meetings, we have meetings there, and Jim Boeheim asked me, he said, are we going to do something about this extra timeout they took away? It makes it very difficult on when to use your timeouts now. That one less timeout, he thought was really, and I agree with him. I said I'd rather them make it a 30-second instead of a minute, but otherwise you got to really watch what you're doing. And I thought with a mature team, I wouldn't call timeout. I might have called it at the 12, and then they hit one more three when it was 12-2. But that's so hindsight-ish. I mean, same thing I've done all year. I've gotten behind a couple of games and held off. You do what you do, and so I'm standing strong. That I'm not stubborn about it. I think it's worked for me, and it's worked for me over a period of time. And when you do something over a period of time, that doesn't mean there's not changes that you can make. But I wouldn't do anything different, unfortunately.
Tom, you mentioned watching games. How difficult was it to watch games? For instance, to watch Middle Tennessee?
It was difficult, but it wasn't as difficult as you think because I loved the game. And so when you love the game, like last night I watched the women's game. I watched a couple other games. I watched Day Day's game. I love the game. So did I just tune it out like I hear some people? Was it hard to watch? Yeah, disappointing to watch. It wasn't difficult to watch because I watched what other teams did. I did figure out that, if I'm 12 up with 40 seconds left, I just might throw the ball in the air and let the clock run out. I figured that out. So I learned something from each game I watched, and there were tougher things to learn than what I went through. I mean, a team earned their way. First thing Denzel said to me, well, I would rather have lost the way we lost than lost that way. And so, people down there are probably saying something different. It's an interesting profession, but I love watching games. I've watched them. I can't say that I watched them with the same vigor I would have if we were playing Friday night, but I watched them.
But even to watch Middle Tennessee return to being Middle Tennessee against Syracuse.
I don't know if they returned. They were a team that could shoot threes. I mean, the one kid that had 21 was 2 for 11 in the last 5 games, and he had 3 big ones. And the other kid was 4 or 3 for 15 or something, and he hit a couple of big ones. And but I thought that's where Jay Billis said it best. You're not going to watch on film the team you're going to play, because those teams are going to play at another level. They're going to jump higher. They're going to run faster. They're going to shoot better. It's their one shining moment. And, for all the negative things I got from some coaches that have been through it, I got some very positive things that helped bring it in perspective. But, I didn't curl up and die. I tried to write down things each day that I thought I could, maybe improve on or do better. I tried to look at things, and every time I did, I went back and watched the film, and would I have changed that? And I never came up with a yes very often. And so I'm going to learn from it. That I think what's hardest for I'll say the Spartan Nation and for the coaches is if there was some blatant things you did wrong, you'd at least feel better about it. If I smoked cigarettes every day and I got lung cancer, I at least could justify it. I can't justify it. I will not go with they did not respect, they did not prepare, because I know what we did and I watched them every day. I will not go with, certain guys didn't or this or that. I know how Denzel is. So it was, it's all bad, but it's all good, if that makes any sense.
Tom, you've, after previous seasons, sometimes you're angry or defiant or you're going to look at some things. What do you take away from, because this is totally unique for your season to end like this, what do you take away from this? Is there a newly motivated, different motivated, the same? It just seems so foreign that I'm not sure what you take out of it.
I'm not sure I do either right now. I'm in the process of taking things out of it, but it's kind of a cool problem to have. Just think of the way you asked the question. This is foreign. It's different. It doesn't mean, there were things a couple years that I was angry about, or it was easier. Didn't do a good enough job. Last year we did not defend the dribble drive, and they went to the free throw line 1,000 times, and that's the way the game ended, and I was mad about that, and I figured I was going to do a better job of that. Early in the year, there were games when, it seemed like the free throws. We corrected that. I wish I had a way to correct it. Putting a towel behind my back or above my head would correct this. I would do it. But, I think Fred told me one time, because it's the only thing he talks about is baseball, that it was Sparky Anderson that says the other team is good too. Well, good means, it doesn't mean you have to be good on an extended period of time. You can be good for one game. I mean, I don't know what they shot in most games, but I had film on, I must have watched 15 films on them. I've never seen them shoot like that. I don't think there were teams that were all better defensively than we were. They shot the ball well. They played well. I just wish I could blame it on an official. It would be easier. I'd be pretty good at that. But I can't. I got to take the blame myself if that means there's blame. It's just what we did, and people aren't used to that either. And, I don't think there's any, just understand it doesn't have to be a player. It doesn't have to be my father's death. It doesn't have to be that I'm getting older and I'm losing it. It sometimes can be another team played well, and our team did not play as well. But usually where you don't play well, usually is in the offensive end. Usually you just have that night where you miss shots, they don't go in, and this and that. I mean, is it uncharacteristic for two guards to turn over 11 times without a lot of pressure? Yes, that's uncharacteristic. But it's uncharacteristic if you want to talk about things that don't happen. I'm not sure we've ever shot 56% from the field and 46 or 8 or whatever it was from the three and lost. I'm not sure ever. Ever is my whole career. So there was a couple of unique things that happened, and I just look at it that that's what happened, and I wish I could give you a better answer because it sure would be easier.
Tom, I've seen you after loss, especially earlier in your career, when you beat people and their coaches and fans made excuses to why Michigan State beat them. You didn't get the respect. And is some of the petulance and whining and complaining, quite frankly, just disrespectful to Middle Tennessee State that they just beat you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not like I'm in love with Middle Tennessee State or anything, but I looked at it like on that given day they did. And what I learned, the one thing that I could learn, Woj, that maybe I could help our team with is just, unfortunately, you and me aren't any different than an 18-year-old player in this respect. We do not sometimes do what we should do until we're punched right in the mouth. I mean, do we exercise enough until somebody has a heart attack? Do we do this enough? I'm getting kind of off the wall here, but this is what you do when you go through something like that. You think of everything you do in life, and do you do a better job of some things? Yes. So telling somebody is one thing, going through it is another. And I must tell my players 100 times, the problem with sports, it's okay when players come back 5 years later and say, I wish I would have done this and you were right about this, but you just have that small window. And when you're in the NCAA tournament, the window shrinks. And it's, I'm promising you this, there's been better teams that lost in the first round, more talented teams that lost in the first round over the years. It's just that we kind of went on that run at the end, and nobody was. I mean, I don't know what you guys picked us as, but we were picked 3rd and 4th in the league. We were picked 13th low to 22nd or 3rd, or one magazine has 25th in the league. I mean, it's I had some knucklehead that acted like we lost one player, Brandon Dawson. Forgot about Travis Trice, who's the leading scorer. And remember this, we weren't as good defensively, but we did lose Tum Tum, which you guys maybe don't appreciate, maybe some of you do, but I appreciate it because he was by far my best defender at the point of attack. And really, he wasn't playing all year. I mean, he was hurt when he was playing early. He didn't play for a while. He was, hurt at the end. So, I look at those things as reasons why we, I think if Kenny Goins plays in that last game, as dumb as it sounds, I think we might have been able to sneak out a win. When he was playing, he was doing the things we needed. There was just a mismatch that it was hard for us to deal with. That's what I look at. That's what I come up with.
Tom, as you start to spin this forward, you're talking about the meetings you have with players. I'm just curious what some of the message for some of those guys are, especially obviously Deontay, and what sort of decisions he has coming up, if there's any sort of timetable with him or how you work.
I talked to Deontay yesterday. My only hope for Deontay is that, not blaming you guys on this, but I will get my one dig in on you guys. When you start rumors out a month ago and things, and people start writing things, that makes it hard. When I say you guys, it's somebody in the media, and that's okay. It's what you got to do nowadays. I do understand your job, but nobody understands how these kids take things. And when we sit there and I make my normal rips on the social media, I'm telling you, you still don't appreciate how an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, or 20-year-old takes the same things that they hear every day. And this thing about, well, they got to be a big boy, they got to handle it. Come on, are you kidding me? I don't handle it very well. And I know I'm better off at handling it than they are. So, Didi, we're going to meet with people after we talk to people and that, but I think Didi is fine where he's at. I think he knows what he's got to do. I think guys like Matt McQuaid, Aaron Harris, got to take serious steps up, and then we got to figure out what some of those guys are going to be able to do. Who's going to be able to make a jump and who's not, because we need a couple guys to step up. We're not sitting there as Kentucky where we think a recruiting class is just coming in and dominating. I think our, a lot how Schilling and Deontay and I think Aaron and Matt, for examples, guys that played a lot this year, how they progress is going to be as important as anything else, and that's the way I'm looking at it.
Another question on DD. So you kind of have a sense that he's coming back? Is that your gut feeling now? Or, you've been through this a lot. How? You said ask you anything, so.
I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it.
Kind of your gut feeling now that he is coming back? You think he's coming
back? If
I
say that, I have no feeling right now because I really haven't addressed it. And the people I talk to that matter, but in this game, there are some incredible people talking to incredible kids, and so I don't know. I know Didi knows what he has to get better at. Whether he thinks he can get better at that here, whether he can get better at there, I don't know. But I have no problem with the question. How would you answer it?
I would try to be as forthcoming as I can. It's a question because, whoever does the
okay,
mock
so
draft,
if I say, man, I'm not sure, how does that get tweeted out?
Tom Izzo says he's not sure.
You think so? How does it get? How do you think it gets read?
That I can't interpret.
You're a writer. No question. Or Izzo thinks he's staying, or Izzo's trying to keep him here, or Izzo's trying to. I can't.
Right.
If you want me to answer honestly, then buck up.
Right. Well,
don't be giving me that kind of answer. Then buck up.
I would read
Man
that.
up.
Well, I would read that as he's not sure. How does the public read it? I don't know. I can't pretend to think what the public. How
But isn't that your job?
No.
No.
My job is to get the facts as close as I can and let people decide
All right.
what they
Here
want.
be the facts. I'm not arguing with you.
I'm not either. I'm just having a
The
conversation.
facts are, I don't know.
Right. You're going to assist him.
I'm going to
looking into
assist
it.
him. I'm going to talk to GMs. I'm going to talk to his high school coach and his grandmother, and I'm going to talk to Didi. I'm going to probably give him my personal opinion, and I'm going to remind everybody that you have to be ready to go physically. You have to be ready to go skill-wise, and you have to be ready to go mentally. And so, a lot of times they see a lot of people in a lot of different ways. I'm also going to look at, where the trend is now. The trend is not as many people are coming out because they don't want to go to the D-League. They don't want to go to this and that. They don't want to survive in that. And we're starting to get more numbers on the number of kids that fail. All I want for Deontay Davis is for him to be successful. Until Hollis tells me I'm keeping my job whether Deontay Davis is here or not.
Fair enough.
And if somebody wants it, that's okay too.
And you want him and all your guys to not just get in and get a cup of coffee, but to get in, stay, and contribute and get 2, 3, 4 contracts, right? I mean, isn't that the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal is that, and that is what I think is changing in that. There's getting to be more guys that are coming out and maybe not ready to come out. And, but that's another thing, you can say you don't know how it's taken. How do you think it's taken when that is put out there a month ago? How do you think that's taken? By people, by the players, by everybody. Like he's ready to go. I mean, I tell Dick Vitale that all the time, they should stay in school. Well, by the way, he's the number 1 pick, I mean, how do you take that? It's very difficult, and it's very difficult from our standpoint because anything I say is going to get misinterpreted. I mean, here's what I will say. I would like to do whatever I can do to give Deontay Davis the best chance to be successful, to be the most equipped to handle the real world. And if that means he comes out tomorrow, I'm 200% for it. If that means he stays 3 years, I'm 200% for that. That's the most honest answer I can give you. But this, don't let anybody tell you that what I want most is what's best for the player. That is a definite. What I want most is what's best for the player. So when you think I have a personal agenda in it, it's just not worth it anymore. And remember what I tell all you off the record, because I can say it now because I really don't care. Players leaving early is better for my recruiting than players staying. So what I should do is kick them out. I should, you're out of here, and I don't have to listen to, he doesn't want guys to be one and done. So very difficult thing, but I tell you what, it's a tough decision for kids to make nowadays because our society and everybody sped the process up so much. It's difficult. I feel like when I hear someone say, well, they hurt themselves going back, I don't know how you can ever hurt yourself. If you don't have as good a year, maybe that's your fault. Maybe you would have done the same thing at the next level. When are you mature enough to handle that? If he is this year, God, I'll be the most excited guy, and I'll sit in that green room with him.
Tom, right here. Excuse me, right here. You kind of touched on it, the question prior, and Wojo talking about this being kind of different off-season foreign to you. I'm wondering, how are you, and it's early, how are you approaching, how are you going to look at the nucleus of the team? Is this where it's more based on potential of what the existing guys can do, or is this a season where you kind of evaluate as recruits might be able to do a little bit more this year?
Well, I can't say, like I said to the guy at the press conference there, I'm still not thinking about next year right now. The only thing I'm thinking about next year is I want to learn from what happened and see in the meetings I have if I can figure out something different happened than I evaluated it as. So I'm strictly worrying about the guys that I got here, and that'll shift pretty soon to how we can blend everybody in. But it's not a different than a lot of years. I mean, I can look back on more than a couple years where 2 or 3 guys came in. I mean, that's another great concept that I don't start freshmen. I can tell you a bunch of freshmen I start over my career, and some could start next year, and some could, some of these guys could work their way up. I think some of these guys got to make some decisions on where they are and what they're doing too, and about improving. And what's been hard for me this year is, I had a meeting with Javon Bess, and I said, where are you physically? And he said, I'm pretty good. Why? And I said, well, watching the layup line, you still don't dunk off 1 foot, you still don't do this, you still don't do that. And, it's kind of like the question Larry asked, a guy's got to be ready physically, but a guy's got to be ready mentally. And I think like mentally, he's had 2 injuries. He's almost afraid to jump off it, and those are the things that you got to try to handle in the off season. But last year, our off season was full of, Kenny Goings, 2 sports hernias, Denzel a sports hernia, Gavin's thing in the fall, and Marv's, those things make it more difficult. I laughed when I saw the NCAA pairings because I didn't care if we were 1 or 2. I said it point blankly. But I heard everybody talk about all the things, and, well, they lost these games during this stretch. Nobody ever talked about the injuries. That's supposed to be a major part. If I talk about them, it's an excuse. So, I'm not worried about anything right now except the guys I got getting better and the guys when they come in, and that won't be until summer, and then we'll work with them. I'm excited that Cassius got Mr. Basketball yesterday. I'm excited about what kind of seasons our other guys have had, just like I am every year. And don't make this out to be such a different. I mean, we have gotten beat early on. We have gotten beat being picked by the president to win. I mean, I'm old hat at some of these disappointments. This one was bigger. I keep saying because of the players I coach, maybe than the team I had.
Coach, I know Middle got beat bad by Syracuse, but you said after the game, and for anybody that watched it, a lot of this is about MSU losing, but can you compare that Middle Tennessee effort, execution to other teams you've played? That particular game, I would argue you couldn't tell who the 2 and the 15 seed was by the way they played. Could you put that in perspective, what they accomplished and how they played?
I think that night they played as good as anybody played against us. But remember how many times I came in and said, don't get fooled by our 3-point shooting. Don't get fooled. I mean, I said that before Middle Tennessee. I even knew they were on the map. Okay? And I said, making shots cures a lot of evils. Everybody agree? And they played good. I mean, they gave up 56% shooting by Michigan State. They gave up 46% from the 3 by Michigan State. They got out-rebounded. I mean, I don't know where he evaluated that, but they made shots. They made 3-point shots. They made 3-point plays, falling down, throwing the ball. They made shots. We did not defend them as well as I think we've been defending, but they made shots. And so that's what I swear to you guys, I think it all came to a culmination. I gave you the football examples on, in football, the bigger, stronger, better team usually wins. But in basketball, with 3-point shot and with fouls where you can, get guys out of games, it's just a lot different. So it's hard to compare. And I still think it is. So I think they played one whale of a game. I thought we played average defensively, not poor, average defensively, pretty good offensively, turned the ball over too much. And I've made my football analogies pretty clear that to be good and win in the tournament, it's like watching the Super Bowl. The analysts will talk all the time about turnovers and defense. Turnovers and defense. Our turnovers, 14 is more than normal, but it's not like it's 18 or 19. Our defense was average for us, average for most teams for what they shot, but some of it was what they shot. So I don't know how I can answer that better because I don't think I'm answering your question, but I don't look at it as they were out of their minds. It wasn't like they hit every 3, but they made big shots at big times, and they made more shots than I've seen them make on film. I mean, they just scored 50-some points in their conference tournament to win the thing, and then score 90 against a team that's ranked in the top 2 or 3 defensively in the country. Either we were really bad or they were really, really good.
Hey, Tom, you're here. When you consider the emotional fallout of the loss, now people nationally are saying this might be the biggest upset we've ever seen NCAA tournament history. Is that the consequence of what you have built in this program, that this might be the fact that you lost? I mean, Florida Gulf Coast was a 15 that beat a 2. And for life, I don't remember who that number 2 was, who they beat 2 or 3 years ago. But the fact people are saying no one's going to forget this, is that more of a testament to what you've built here than even the 19 straight NCAA tournament appearances?
How do you know I hate to give any media guy credit, and I hate to give you any. But I got a text from Mike Krzyzewski that night. And I won't go through everything that was in it, but it was really a cool text. And it was kind of exactly what you're saying, and that few people can understand that because few people have been there. And his 215 to Lehigh, and then a year or two later, his 314 to Mercer. It was kind of like, if you're not up there all the time, there's not an upset. And so part of it is, we've put ourselves in that position. That's a positive thing. It's a disappointing thing, but it speaks volumes that it's a positive thing. And you know what? I told my wife, in 1 week, 5 days, went from winning the Big Ten, which I think was an accomplishment, that Big Ten tournament. Sitting in that room and realizing we're a 2 seed instead of a 1 seed, but a 2 seed. Back in middle of January, end of January, that wasn't the case. And feeling so good. And that was Sunday night at 6, 7 o'clock. And by Friday night at 6, 7 o'clock, the world had ended. And that, as he stated, the highs and lows of this sport are incredible, but how you handle them, how you move forward. I'm not moving forward yet. I didn't mean that as a bad. I'm not moving forward yet. I'm not going to move forward yet until I get solely in my mind. I think I'm 99% comfortable with what happened, but until I'm 100, till I get done with all my meetings, till I maybe watch the rest of the tournament, till I evaluate the film again, and then I'm going to move forward. But I think it is a testament to the players that played here before, the program that we built, that I have to admit, I think it's the biggest upset. And the reason I think it's the biggest upset is we were picked as a potential national championship team by you guys, by the coaches. But are you ready to really throw it at me? By me. I came out and said I thought we were a team that had a chance to win a national championship. I didn't say a 1 in a million shot. I thought we were one of the 10, 12, 15 legitimate teams that had a chance. So when you put yourself in that position, and that was done over a period of time over the year, and then you get beat by the lowest seed that ever beat somebody. In other words, a 16 didn't beat a 1. I don't know what the other 8 were. I know what Mike's was. I don't know at that time. I don't know how much of a contender they were. Was that the year North Carolina was better than the Lakers? Was that the year Kentucky was better than the Celtics? I don't know exactly. I should look that up. But I don't think anybody was picked by more people to be in the Final Four, to be there than we were. And so that would make it the biggest upset. You know what? I just have to make sure that that's not my legacy here, And each year, will it remind me, like those free throws I shoot? Yes, it will. Reminders like that don't always have to be negative. They can be motivating things, and I just don't know. Well, next year's tournament, what am I going to say in the hotel the night before? Remember what happened last year? Let's go do it better than last year. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to accept that in my mind, it wasn't what we did as much as it was what the other team did. And for me, I can live with that a little easier than if we would have gone out and, kids would have gotten in trouble the night before. Or, in my mind, we didn't respect the team or the game. That would have been harder to deal with than this is.
How much have you talked to Denzel in the last few days, and how is he doing?
I'm meeting with Matt today. I talked to Denzel. I talked to Bryn yesterday. I talk to Denzel every day. In fact, I text each guy every day to try to say, hang in there, world didn't end, things like that. But, I had some messages and some people calling me that, man, when they heard Denzel say, I'll live with this the rest of my life, like that was sad. I don't think that's sad. I think that tells how much it meant to him. I think that's, I've coached more than a few guys that I wish felt that way. And me personally, I'm not going to forget it the rest of my life. But I think Denzel's like me. I think he's going to use that as a driving factor. When somebody said, do you think, I said it to Mitch yesterday at Mitch Album. He says, when I lost my mother, it really affected me. And do you think that could have affected you? I said, it did affect me. It affected me in a motivating way. And the year my dad died, I wanted to win a national championship. You can look at things half full or half empty. I'm a lot of times a half empty guy, but sometimes I'm a half full guy. And when we won the Big Ten championship, and my 90-year-old mother was on the floor with me, her first words was, man, your dad's looking down, and wouldn't he be proud? Well, if he'd been proud about that one, he'd have really been proud about the next one. So that was motivating for me. That was not depressing for me. I didn't lose my dad when I was 12 like some people. I didn't lose him in a tragedy. I lost him because he couldn't quite outlive time. He gave it a run. And I'll tell you that was not why we lost the game. It was all good. It was all good reasons. We just got beat. Another one.
Yeah, kind of a pivot here. Do you anticipate beyond the Deontay Davis talk, everybody coming back, and how many meetings have you gone through?
I do. A couple guys are gonna have to make some decisions. Some guys didn't play as much, and maybe want to play more. And if they want to play more because they were injured, then we're gonna talk about it. If they want to play more because they didn't play well enough or work hard enough, then they're gonna have some decisions to make. This day and age, I don't look at kids transferring as a negative like I used to. Again, I want everybody to be happy, me and them. And so, that'll be in the conversation. There'll be a couple kids that'll be on the bubble on whether they think they should leave because they want to play more minutes or want to do more things. And, but that'll be up front and talked about, and it already has been some. And it'll be there's nothing. We're all trying to find something negative about this team, and even in that, if 3 guys transfer, it won't be negative. How's that for a crazy statement? It just means that we're all on the same page. We all understand each other.
Graham took my question, but I'll ask you this: you're going to Houston anyway next week. You're going to get a big news, obviously, about the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I'm going to Houston. I can't say that I'm looking forward to that. In a way, it's tough to. It's tough to do, I saw Susie Merchant walk in today, and she hadn't seen sunlight in a couple days. It's tough when you think you could have done something that you didn't do, and it's hard to go watch like Denzel's going down because he's got invited down there. I think Bryn's got invited down there for the 3-point contest, and I'm working on Matt for maybe the All-Star game, whatever. And I'd like my guys to be able to go because I think they deserve to enjoy their accomplishments, but every one of them said it would be hard to go to the games. And you know what? I respect that too. I really do.
Tom, I know you haven't spent any time looking ahead to next year, but I'd like to ask you a joint question about Gavin Schilling and Marvin Clark. We saw how Matt Costello made a big jump in 1 year. For those two, could this be the most critical summer of their careers, and in a very much mean it in a positive way?
Well, I thought last summer was the most critical summer for Gavin Schilling, because I don't think you can wait till your senior year to make it critical, even though Matt made progress. He made progress. I came back from that European trip. I told you that I thought Schilling was maybe our most improved player, Then he breaks the toe, and he's out for the 9 weeks. And lost some things that he had gained. And I think Gavin will make a big jump. I think his love for the game improved a lot last summer. I think he has a better perspective on things. So I'm positive about that. And Marv, it's hard for me with Marv too, because I thought he was going to have. He had a little bit of a rough start to the summer with an injury, and then he got injured in October, and you saw a couple of glimpses of him, but to me, he was never the same all year long. And is that because of him? Is it because of the injury? Is it because of us? Those are the things we're going to have to discuss with him and try to figure out. But I think it is critical summer for a lot of guys. Usually the freshman to sophomore summer, sophomore to junior summer are the most critical summers. And I thought Schilling did make big progress last year. I thought the injury really hampered him, to be honest.
Tom, as of today, you've lost 2 games in 2 months, but you happen to lose on the wrong day. As a guy who's as tough on himself as he is on his players, was there a point this weekend where you stopped beating yourself up over this, or have you yet?
The funny thing is, this was one of those years a lot tougher on myself than on my players. I've had years when I've been tougher on my players than on myself. Wasn't tough on my players at all, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm just telling you. Point in this weekend, no. I mean, I'm not beating myself up because I wouldn't have done something different. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed I don't get to coach those guys again. I'm disappointed that we didn't do what I think we could have done for this school, this city. I'm disappointed because I think this group would have been one that people would have liked to have, the human interest stories that you guys all do such a great job of and TV does a great job of, because there were a lot of them. So I think this would have been, somebody would have had, Kobe and, Beaumont Hospital, operating on somebody. Somebody would, there would have been some great human interest stories, and I feel bad about that. But 2 games in 2 months, I never looked at it that way. But somebody called me and said, you're 5-1 against the teams that are left in the Sweet 16, and I mean those things are kind of, I think they say it to make me feel better. I think I feel worse, but I'm telling you. Don't let anybody kid you about this team. They weren't the best team. They weren't the greatest team. They weren't our best team in my mind. I mean, I still think the 2001 might have been the best. 2000 might have been, but it was the best overall. It was just an enjoyable team to be around, an enjoyable team to coach.
We asked you this on signing day too, but do you think you might have your most talented team next year?
If Dede keeps improving, if Aaron Harris takes a big step, McQuaid takes a big step, I think those guys are talented enough. And Schilling, but when you say that, or when I say that, remember, talent doesn't win championships. Talent doesn't win games. It helps them. It just depends on attitudes. It depends on leadership. It depends on a lot of things that are the intangibles of this thing. I mean, I don't think we got beat by a more talented team. We got beat. But I think it has a chance to be. Yeah, I do think it has a chance to be, because I think there's talent at different positions, which is always good. And I think, I think some of the guys we got, like Harris and McQuaid and even Kyle Arns, are guys that can really shoot the ball, because we're going to be missing a lot of shooting, and we got to get those guys to where they can do that. And I think, we saw a little bit of that with Harris in some games that Zell missed. I think he averaged 17-6 in the games that Zell missed. And you could see it with McQuaid early, then he hit a little bit of wall, and, we got to get him on track, but I'm not worried about that. He lives in the gym. So, yeah, I think it could be definitely right up there.
Clark was pretty despondent in the locker room, kind of, missed those cutouts earlier. It kind of felt like have you talked to him? How is he responding now?
He was the second guy I talked to. He's, he too is a great kid and everything, but, you got to improve on things that you can't make the same mistakes over and over and over. And in saying that, you know, one thing I learned from these guys, because I think these guys are very honest, and, you know, a couple of them talked about the confidence they lost when they got injured. And 2 or 3 of them, you know, and not sure I regained that. And, you know, you look at big, strong athletes and you just automatically assume that 99% of them are cockier than hell and drive you crazy that way. But sometimes the cockiness, it's like the bully on the playground, you know. He's not usually the toughest guy. He just acts the toughest. So it's a false sense of security. And I think, you know, from these guys, if there's one thing I've got out of the meetings, you know, you got to open up more about, you know, things that are bothering you. And sometimes they have nothing to do with a coach or another player. It's themselves. But we're not supposed to do that nowadays. We're supposed to talk to the computer and see if it talks back to us, you know, and that's hard. And that's not a quick-witted BS. That is the truth. That is the facts. And I think that's what I'm hitting the meetings on. If, you know, we got to be more reliant on each other because the world's changing. Still to win, I think there's a specific way to do it. And you think about all the things that we went through and all my great analogies. I see Louis sitting back there, and, you know, some of you laugh at my football ones, but when I said the Denver Broncos, baby, you know what? They won the way we lost. Their defense stood up. Our defense didn't stand up. And that's the way, still at the end, our offense was fine. I mean, shoot that percentage, our offense was fine, like the quarterback going 25 or 30. You know, the defense gives up a lot of things. That's the constant. So it reassures me that the same people that are wondering why I've preached defense and rebounding and toughness all these years, as long as I'm here, they're going to hear the same message. That's not changing. And not changing because of what Mark D'Antonio did this year. Not changing because of what Nick Saban did this year. Not changing because of what the Broncos did this year. Not changing because of what Golden State and the Spurs did last year. The best teams are the best defensive teams 99% of the time. Okay? Best defensive team has to play the best defense. And that's what let us down a little bit.
Tom, you've talked all along with this group about the chemistry that they've had, especially with the seniors.
Yep.
With such a class coming in, you obviously had the Italy trip last year and the Final Four run to help build that. Are there things that you have taken or have plans for coming up?
Yeah. We talked about that yesterday, that we're going to, you know, we can't take another foreign trip. But with the NCAA rules now, you can do a lot of different things. You know, maybe I'll have spring football in Florida or something. You know, I don't know. But I'm gonna do something, and I mean that sincerely. I mean, you know, we'll figure out. We're gonna work on that. What can we do? You know, I might take my team to a football training camp in August. You know, I don't know. I'm gonna do something, or a couple of somethings that I can legally do to try to build that, because number one, I realize how important it is, and number two, I mean, we're going to be 50-50, you know, 50% new guys, 50% veterans, and so I think that's one thing I've learned that is going to be very, very important, and we're going to have to figure that out with the players, you know, former players. I'm going to ask Denzel has already been great, you know, just we're going to meet with those guys about the guys coming back and to try to get a good feel on how we can do a better job too.
Tom, I asked you a similar question 2 weeks ago before you head down to the Big Ten tournament. So with the season being over, do you think over the summer you may give A.D. Hollis a call and try to see if you guys might get a banner made up for winning the tournament this year?
You know, I did talk to our team about that. It was kind of one of the you know, you're always trying to find an edge, or, you know, in this program, you're always trying to find, you talk so much about leaving a footprint, or so much about leaving a legacy, or so much about leaving something that they can't forget you. And a lot of schools do it. For some reason, we haven't. I don't think it's anything against Hollis or Tom Izzo. It's probably my ignorance of not really pushing the envelope. And I called him when that started. And I said, if we do, I'd like to I'd like to be able to talk to my team about, that'll be another thing that we can hang up that your kids can remember. And he was 100% in agreement with it. I got to admit, I haven't talked to him since. But that will be something we will talk about, especially since the importance of that seems to be growing in every way except the committee. The importance of that last game and that championship in the league because of the distorted and unbalanced schedules. I'm sad to say it's taking more of an importance. I only say that because I still think the 18 games is more valuable than that. But I think we celebrate, and maybe Louis, you can nod your head. I think we celebrate winning a side of the league that's been split. I think that's common in football. So maybe we better buck up and do a better job in basketball. So I think that was a good suggestion that I think I've taken to heart, and I've already started the ball rolling on it. And we'll see what we can do with it.
Kind of along the lines of the team building with this group, do you expect Tum Tum to be the spearheader like Denzel was last summer of getting guys together? And do you have to challenge him to do that, or is that something he's just going to do?
No, I don't think I have to challenge him. In fact, it was Denzel that came up to me in February when Tum wasn't playing, and Denzel had a few, average practices for him. And I said, you're tired. You don't seem to have the same life. And he looks at me. He says, Coach, he says, you're not going to believe this, but I miss Tum. He says, he got me going every single day. And those of you that come to practices, that's what he does. The problem that I think, that we have to solve is usually when your best player is your best leader, that's always a little bit more valuable because he gains instant respect both off the court and on the court. And we know Tum isn't our best player, and he knows he's not. And I talked to him yesterday about different things he's got to do and different things he could have done this year that maybe he didn't do. And so he is a unique human being, not a unique basketball player, unique human being. And I think he'll find a way to do that. Going to the movies, orchestrating those kind of things, going out to eat, that's no problem. It's getting the respect on the court as a player and off the court as a person that I think he's going to have to blend together. And we're going to have to look at, too, and who else we think can do that. Because that was a big part of this team.
Coach, you mentioned defense probably a dozen times, but your trademark defense kind of has been canceled out by rules. I mean, how much recreating of the wheel is still ahead for your – I know you learned to win without that style of defense. Early this season you adjusted, but how much do you have to recreate the wheel and find a new – trademark defense for Michigan State?
Well, I think the hardest part is, you can't recreate the wheel, or you can't jump until you're sure how it's going to be. Does anybody in here think that it was the same at the beginning as it was at the end? In your minds? No? You thought it was? I don't. I thought it was different. And how much different? I mean, it still leaned to powder puff ball, but I mean, how much different? I don't know, but I'm not going to adjust everything we do. I'm going to probably try to work a little harder on the dribble penetration because I think one of the things I learned last year, we did a better job this year, is people just drove to get fouled. So you got to work a little harder on that. That's where we're not Pac-Man that Virginia calls it. We're not, but we really are a lot that way, and more schools are going to that. You don't see as many schools out denying everything anymore, partially because I think of the rules, partially because I think they're figuring out that's maybe a better way to play. And so I don't know. I'm gonna look at all that, and that's when I'll get a chance to talk to some of the coaches around the country I respect. If I'm going to do something different than I did, I think I would find a way to pick out some coaches that I think have been through some things like we've been through, or have played the kind of defenses we played, or, I think we'll make some adjustments offensively in what we do next year. I don't think we'll play as much with two posts as we did. So I think we'll look at some things there that we'll adjust to. So it could be a fun spring for me and my assistants, because some guys, we might be traveling a little bit, like my favorite sport does, like football. They send a staff here, they send a staff there, they send people here. I think that's all good to try to figure out, and I got some coaches that want to come in and figure us out. So I think we don't share as much in basketball because recruiting is too, but I think that's a good thing, because sometimes it teaches you something new, sometimes it makes you realize what you're doing is pretty good.
Yeah, Ellis came on a great deal from my standpoint anyway, late in the season. Where do you see him for next year?
Still a question mark, again, he's gotten better in a couple of areas, and he's definitely played better, but, there's the whole picture there too, when I look at the reason this team was successful, it was successful on, off the court, and in the classroom. And personally, I think that's important. And so Elvin's got to keep growing. He had a few good months, up until that. As I told him, in my mind, he didn't make basketball important enough. I was pretty honest with you guys last year with both him and Schilling. I thought Schilling made giant strides last summer. I thought Elvin took some steps. And so those are some of the things that probably tomorrow and the next day when I meet with him, that I'll be talking about with him. To be good at this, just like to be good in your profession. Some of you guys drive up, you do things you do. Some of you guys work your tail off to get information, to be on things. Some other guys don't. To be great at what you do, you gotta spend a lot of time, and you gotta put in extra time. And especially with the rules the way they are in the NCAA, if you're not spending extra time, you're just becoming good. Good. I'll be sitting here next year. I have no interest in sitting here talking to your mugs this week. I'd rather be enjoying the NCAA tournament. Yeah, this is your chance, man. I got nowhere to go. I gotta go back up there and see my secretaries. That's no fun, huh? Yeah. Yeah, I did. I said, I talked to Stan Van Gundy before, I talked to Doc Rivers before, and I always laughed that, whenever I looked at an NBA job, the one thing that people would tell me is the playoffs are intriguing because, you like to coach, which, let's face it, in college you get to do that part of the time. But when you play a game, it's best of 7, and you win the first one, you know that other team's going back and figuring out what you did and what you didn't, and they claim that's really interesting. That I wasn't thinking about. I was thinking if I was in the NBA, I'd have another chance to coach these guys. I'd have another chance to redeem myself. But it's the beauty of the NCAA tournament. It's just not beautiful when you're the one that goes down. But it is the beauty of the NCAA. It's what makes it. It's what makes it so exciting. If they're all best of 7, it wouldn't be exciting. I remember as a kid watching. I guess I was an adult watching Magic and the Celtics. And that's all they talked about was Game 7. There's nothing like a Game 7. Every game we play is a Game 7. And so the answer would be yes, I did, but for maybe different reasons.
Tom, you just mentioned Gavin briefly. If I remember, he got injured in the final preseason game when he had 12 and 12, something like that. How much different do you think your front court would have looked had he not gone down with whatever that toe injury was?
Well, a lot different because it created some problems that I thought he was a guy that could guard any small forward in the country, much less center, but he has incredible athletic ability. He is a flat-out athlete as far as his feet go and movement and speed. And then we started experimenting. So then you go right to Marv, and Marv was out. And then you try to go to Kenny. Kenny had been out all summer with the 2 sports hernias. And so it didn't go to Kenny. And then we started saying, well, can Deontay do this? And he did a pretty good job against guys that could really shoot it because his size bothered him, but struggled a little bit with guys that could put it on the floor. And so, then we had Javon in there, and his size, a little smaller, created problems against the Louisvilles or the Kansases a little bit, So, yeah, we were trying to tweak that all year long, and I think Gavin would have given us some stability on that. But other people have injuries, but although I was watching TV yesterday and they interviewed Buddy Hield, and I think for 2 straight years they've had the same lineup, or all year this year the same exact lineup. Carolina, other than that first 3 weeks when the guard was hurt, you look at some of the best teams, Kansas, you just got that consistency and continuity. I talked to Mark D'Antonio, and during the year I talked to him, and if you remember those couple of games when they were really, I guess, not playing great, barely beating some teams that people thought they should beat handily. Rutgers was one, and this and that, and you got 2 All-American linemen that are out, and then I like I do, I like search and call people, and you thought of the Patriots this year, and why is Brady getting hit so much? Is he getting slower with the trigger? Well, they had 3 linemen out half the year. Those are things that I can't explain to people, and I can't explain how hard it is to get them back. But it's not an excuse. It's just a fact. Look what Michigan's done here, my arch rival. You lose 2 guys like that, it just makes it dysfunctional and hard. And it's hard to, you can piecemeal it back together, but it's never as smooth as if you had everything the whole year long. And that's kind of, I think, fans' frustration. My frustration, I came in here many a times. I'm still juggling my lineup. I'm still juggling my playing group. I told you I was doing it. I tried to tell you why I was doing it. I don't know if it seemed like an excuse or made sense, but I was still juggling it. When we put Kenny in, we didn't think, I came in here and told you I didn't think Kenny was going to play. That was like a week before. And then the week of, he made a big-time recovery. I wasn't hiding Kenny Goins. He was my 10th guy, But he gave us something in there that he could defend the more athletic guy on the dribble drive, and he was good enough rebounder. What Kenny struggled with, because he couldn't lift all summer, he wasn't physically very strong. He couldn't lift with that thing all summer and fall. And so that was that.
Looking ahead real quick to Big Ten, I don't know if you heard, but I don't think you have. Moments ago, Rutgers announced they hired Calhoun's disciple from Stony Brook. I'm just curious, your thoughts again about the Big Ten just continuing to add good coaches.
Well, there's so many rumors, It's Pittsburgh. I hear rumors on who they're going to take. Is it going to be a Big Ten guy? The guy there, I don't know, but I happen to know one of his assistants. He's from Muskegon, and great guy, and that guy's done a great job there. I think talking to their AD at the end of the year when we played out there, I think they realize they really have to do some things with their facilities if they're going to get up to par, no matter who they have coaching there. And I think they're making a commitment to it. And if they make a commitment to it, I think we're going to be, the league will get better. I felt bad for Eddie Jordan, and here's why. They lost 3 big guys at the beginning of the year. And 2 of them were starters. And they're just not that deep at the point that they were going to be that way. I think when you look at next year, or you look at this year, for me, Indiana, Maryland, and Wisconsin, it's great to see what they're doing right now. I think that's great for the league. The ACC has been so good. The Big 12 and the Pac-12, haven't been as good. I guess we were a cause, us and Purdue, of the Big Ten not looking as good. But I still think the league's going to be really good again next year. And hard to say who will be where, but it's going to be good.
You mentioned Kenny. Where was his injury at after Friday's game? And are there any other guys that have to have any kind of a cleanup? Obviously
Yeah.
Tom with his feet.
Yeah, I don't. Tom gets a procedure done tomorrow, Thursday. You have to talk to my trainer and doctor on that. It's not an operation, but it's a procedure that'll put him out for 4 to 6 weeks, and so he'll be down for a while. And Kenny, I think he tweaked it. I don't think he did anything to it that is going to require any kind of surgery or anything. From what I know, I do have my meeting with my trainer tomorrow morning to kind of go over all that, the doctors. But thank God I don't see anything other than Tom that is going to be of any length of time right now anyway. I don't know, just starting to have fun with you guys. Nothing? Well, let me close by saying hopefully you had as much fun as I did this year. It was a good year, and I think even media guys can have fun with it. And I appreciate all you did. Didn't have as many round tables because of whatever, but the things that were said off the record were kept off. Trying to figure out how I can make things better. I've done some research on a couple teams that open up practice a little bit more. There's things that I think that makes more work for you guys, but if there's things that you think we could do a better job of in that respect, don't be afraid to at least call Matt or call me. You all got my number. And just, I'd close by saying what I started by saying, anybody's got a problem with what I did, make it a problem. Anybody's got a problem with what these players did this time, please diffuse the problem, because it wasn't, it'll go down for you and me as one of the best groups to deal with all year long. And those that had to follow us on a daily basis, I think you would agree. And as Mark D'Antonio says to me at the end of football, hey, basketball's right around the corner. I will call him after my last press conference today and say, guess what, my man? Time to start playing football, and that's what we'll do. So our baseball team's what, 14-1? What, 14-3? Well, it was close. It shows you I'm following, and if you want to go over there with me and watch practice today before I go to Detroit and recruit, I'll be glad to take you on. Thanks, guys.